Welcome to Thought for the Day. I don't watch much television, never really have, but on Sunday afternoon I had a phone call from a member of my family who said, "We watched an amazing programme this morning. It was about climate change and it was about Jesus. We'd love to talk to you about it. Could you watch it?" Well, I'm never one to turn down an opportunity to talk to someone about Jesus, and climate change is an important issue. So we went back on iPlayer and watched it on Sunday, later on Sunday afternoon. And it was one of these, it was a programme called The Big Questions, where there's a sort of studio audience debate discussion around moral, ethical, religious questions. And I think they normally have to have a sort of ethical question and then a more religious one. And that's how this particular programme was set up. The first half was addressing the question, can COVID save the planet? And it was largely, as far as we could tell, a debate between people who said, as we come out of all the changes that have happened in COVID, a time when we've stopped burning so much coal, stopped generating so much carbon dioxide, can we come out of it in a new direction? With those who said, well, actually, as we start to come out of COVID, we're going to be so desperate for jobs and for wealth on any terms that we'll do whatever it takes, whether it means building houses on the green belt, building more motorways, or opening more coal mines. And it's going to be those issues of saving the planet will be completely irrelevant. Fairly standard debate, you've probably heard some of it yourselves. But one of the themes that went through it was that actually what we need to do is a real and deep change. If we're going to survive as a human race, certainly in anything like the way we do, we're going to have to really change, each of us, change our individual behaviour, give up maybe some things that we cling on to at the moment, be prepared to pay more for some things, give up some of our selfish habits. So that was the first half. The second half was paraphrased as, have we misunderstood Jesus? A bit more precisely, the question being asked was, if Jesus wasn't the Son of God, would we take more notice of him? And most of it, to be honest, was again fairly familiar territory. There was some very interesting conversations, but most of it was, I have to admit, somewhat familiar territory. Wouldn't it be easier to believe in Jesus without the miracles? Claims that what's in the Bible didn't really represent what Jesus said because it was written long afterwards. Conveniently ignoring the fact that within weeks of Jesus dying, people were prepared to suffer, to go to prison, and quite soon even to die for following him. And then the more recent, I think, very perceptive observation, if you look at what's actually in the Gospels and the way they describe people and the way they describe events and places, they couldn't actually have been written by anyone other than eyewitnesses. Or that was brushed away. They weren't with him. They wrote it up long afterwards. Again, fairly familiar territory. They're also ignoring the fact that if Jesus hadn't claimed to be the Son of God himself, then he wouldn't have been crucified. So it was a kind of slightly unsatisfactory discussion at that level. But there was, again, a common thread that went through it. It was started off by a philosopher, a guy called Julian Baggini, and basically everyone else agreed with him. And he said, if I read what Jesus said in the Gospels, I find someone who's not like any other great thinker or philosopher, because he doesn't bring big ideas for us to think about. He doesn't trade in those sort of abstract ideas. He speaks much more personally. He brings something which in some ways is much more uncomfortable than just a new idea. He brings a challenge to examine ourselves, to examine our own motivations, to examine our own ways of thinking, to examine our own selfishness, to examine the way we behave towards others. And just as the programme was ending and they were coming up with a kind of summary, the penny dropped. That what they all agreed Jesus was saying in the second half was what they all agreed in the first half the world really needed. A call to deep change in motivations, change in behaviour of every one of us. And also that the only way we'll take heed of that message, the only way we can possibly take heed of a message that's so as disturbing as the one Jesus brings, is if he is actually who he claimed to be, the Son of God, who doesn't lord it over us, but loved us enough to come and give his life to die for us. So can COVID save the planet? Well, I hope so. I'd like to hope so. I fear, given human nature, I fear not. But what can? Maybe it's actually what has always offered to save us, which is the words and work of Jesus, if we can only accept him on his own terms. So may God bless you. If you disagree with what I've said, I'd love to do get in touch with me. Maybe we can carry on this discussion. If you come back to me, I'd be happy to engage with some of that, either one-to-one or in further thoughts for the day. So may God bless you as you go through this Tuesday.